Welcome back to Saxon Math. This is lesson 53, decimal charts and simplifying fractions. For many lessons, we've been developing our decimal arithmetic skills. We find that arithmetic with decimal numbers is similar to arithmetic with whole numbers. However, with decimal arithmetic, we need to keep track of the decimal point. The chart on the facing page summarizes the rules for decimal arithmetic by providing memory cues to help you keep track of the decimal point. Across the top of the chart are the four operation signs: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Below each sign is the rule or memory cue to follow when performing that operation. There are two kinds of division problems, each with a different cue. The bottom of the chart contains two reminders that apply to all of the operations. So when looking at your decimal arithmetic reminders chart, this is what you see. When adding or subtracting decimals, you simply line the decimals up and bring it straight down into the answer. With multiplication, you multiply as if there are no decimals, but then you must count the spaces to the right of the decimal places and transfer that number of spaces you counted into the product. When dividing by a whole number, if you have a decimal number, you simply move the decimal straight up in the answer. When dividing by a decimal number, you have to move the decimal over. If you move it over one time in this location, you have to move it over one time in this location. And then you move it straight up into the quotient. You may need to place a decimal point to the right of a whole number or fill empty places with decimals sometimes. We simplify fractions in two ways. So this is the other concept that we're covering here. We reduce fractions to lowest terms and we convert improper fractions to mixed numbers. Sometimes a fraction can be reduced and converted to a mixed number. So let's look at an example here. Simplifying 4/6 plus 5/6, you see the numerators can be added. The denominator stays the same. Once you add those, you get 9/6. Then you can simplify this fraction simply by taking 9 divided by 6. 9 divided by 6 results in a whole number because 6 times 1 is 6. There'd be 3 left over. That's the numerator. This is the denominator. Then you have to recognize that that 1 3/6 can be reduced to 1 1/2 because 3 divided by 3 is 1 and 6 divided by 3 is 2. And you have to remember there's 1 there for the whole number. So make sure you reduce. All right, let's try a few of these. So discuss how the rules in the decimals chart apply to each of these problems. So if you have letter A, 5 minus 4 and 2/10. In this case, actually, here's what I'll do for this one. For you to answer letter A, let's use the decimal chart. Let's use this decimal chart here. And let me just bring that over to us. So I'm going to copy that decimal chart and let's bring this decimal chart over to this space here too. So if in the answer for letter A, let's decide which of these would we use. So let's look at, for A, would we use this one? Is this applying to A, B, C, or D? So in this particular one, which of the rules or the reminders applies to this first part, and then put a semicolon between that, and then use A, B, C, or D to answer that, and then put a semicolon here, and then answer is it A, B, C, or D that would apply to that, and then another semicolon for this last problem, and decide is it A, B, C, or D. So for letter A, it actually has a 4-part answer. So you need to have either A, B, C, or D for this one, A, B, C, or D for this one, A, B, C, or D for this one, or A, B, C, or D for this one. So which of those rules in the decimal arithmetic reminder would be utilized? Okay, so again, if this is confusing, it's just A, B, C, or D. Line up, multiply, then count, move the decimals straight up or over, and up. Referencing the decimal arithmetic reminders chart, you can see that this is 5 divided by 4 and 2/10. So this is dividing by a decimal. So we'd have to go over in this one, and up. So this would be referencing letter D. This would be referencing multiplying decimals. So you'd have to count, multiply, then count. So that would be letter B. This is 12 hundredths divided by 3, so that's dividing by a whole number, so this would be letter C. And 5 divided by 4/10 is the same as this one right here, where you're dividing by a decimal, where you'd have to move the decimal place over, and up. So this would be D, B, C, D for the answer for letter A. So for letter B, you can answer it here in the Ed puzzle. Let's say that A, B, C, and D again. And let's say that I'm going to do this problem. 3 and 2/10 times 4. Which one of these would I use for letter B? Would I use A, B, C, or D as far as the decimal arithmetic reminders when doing this one? Let's do this one for letter B. So what would be the answer? Would I use this method, C method, or D method? A method, B method, C method, or D method? If I'm multiplying decimals, I have to just multiply and then count. So this would have been letter B. So let's just say for that one. All right, let's try letter C, 10/12 plus 5/12. In this case, you would simply have to add up. You don't actually use the decimal arithmetic reminders at all for this because these are fractions. So you end up with 10 plus 5, which equals 15. The denominator stays the same, but this has to be reduced to 1 and 3/12, which also can be reduced to 1 and 1/4 in this case for letter C. All right, for letter D, you have 9/10 plus 6/10. So for letter D, 9 plus 6 in the numerators, and then the 10th stays the same. So you'd have 15 here and 10 in the bottom. And if I was to do 15 divided by 10, 10 would go into 15 one time. I'd have 5 left over, which makes the numerator, and 10 goes in the denominator. So I'd have 1 and 5/10, but then I have to recognize that 5 divided by 5 can be done, and 10 divided by 5 can be done. So I'd have 1 and 1/2 for letter D. And then letter E, 8/12 plus 7/12. So for letter E, I'm just going to have 8 plus 7 in the numerators, and the 12 just remains the same. So I need to have 12 in the denominator. This will be 15/12. And just like this one over here, if we were to do 15 divided by 12, 12 will go into 15 one time, will get us to 12. That'll be 3 left over 12. which reduces to 1 and 1/4, because this one can be divisible by 3, this one can be divisible by 3. So this one is also 1 and 1/4 for the final answer on that. All right, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, make sure you review this video again, and we'll see you next time.